Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Blue Jays Today show, guys. And this week, we are 1 week closer to the final decision of Juan Soto. Which team is he inevitably going to play for, maybe for the rest of his entire career? We got some updates about the Red Sox, and we got a big one. A big bomb just dropped literally right before this podcast. You're getting the freshest news right here about Juan Soto and the Toronto Blue Jays and where they are currently at. And apparently, the Blue Jays are a lot more legitimate than you might think. Before we get into it, guys, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Blue Jays Today. So, right before this, we had a New York MLB Insider. I believe he does stuff for the Yankees. He does stuff for the Mets. Andy, I believe his name. Martino, thank you very much. Andy Martino dropped a bomb recently, but came out with an article giving a little bit of an update about where kind of the landscape of Juan Soto is, and he had a really interesting thing to say about the Toronto Blue Jays.
Just when you thought that they were out, they bring you back in, and here we go again. We were filming something for our other channel this morning, and the vibe was, or the sentiment was, that the Toronto Blue Jays were now becoming a distant third or fourth.
Right.
And then Andy Martino decides to come out and say that, in fact, there is widespread belief among bidders that Toronto will come out with the highest offer.
Wow.
He continues to say Soto has no need to inflate the perception of his market by adding teams that aren't legitimately in it. So let's go by one by one right here. So that first sentence, Blue Jays projected to be the highest bidder, or at least the sentiment among other bidders is that they will be giving the highest offer. When we first started talking about this whole Juan Soto thing and the bidding war and the sweepstakes to get this guy onto the Toronto Blue Jays, we made it very clear that the only way that they were going to do that is if they bet it all. They really put all the money onto the table, because when you look at the team, you're looking at a 74-win squad that does not have their superstar locked up for a long period of time, that has a lot of question marks surrounding the ownership, surrounding the future of the front office, surrounding a lot of everything right there. And when you compare that to a New York Mets team that just made it to the NLCS in, a very dramatic fashion, or a New York Yankees team that went to the World Series, or a historical franchise in the Boston Red Sox who does have their superstar locked up for a long period of time, a lot of those things are going against the Toronto Blue Jays. So what is the only way to set yourself apart from all of those other teams? You get to the table with fuck it money.
Yeah, I mean, I came out with a video room. I think it was literally, this past weekend, where I talked about the Blue Jays literally need to start with a 7 in front of that 9-figure deal. Like, that's the type of offer that it needs to be. Now, I don't have it up right here, but the word on the street is, like, the Yankees are only willing to be around that 550 mark. And right now, there could be 2 or maybe 3 teams around that 600 mark. We broke down the Red Sox last week. There's a lot of rumors out there, but the general consensus is that the Red Sox are offering around $600 million. So if they're doing that, the Mets are going to offer around $600 million. And if this is true, then the Blue Jays are also going to offer $600 million, if not even higher, maybe $650, maybe even upwards, getting even closer to $700 million. Now, we talked about it before as well, where Juan Soto and Scott Boras are seriously going to just consider the highest offer. That's the number one priority. Everything after that is going to be a sweetening of the deal. Like, where's the state of your team? Are you a winning ball club? It's important to him, but inevitably, if you got the highest offer on the table, higher than anybody, then he's going to go there. Now, the other side of that is the Mets going to allow that to happen? Or are they going to allow the Blue Jays to have the highest offer and take them away?
Okay, here's the thing. Also, I don't know if you saw my mic's low.
I did. I turned it up.
Fixed that.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Thank you. Andy Martino is a reporter for the New York Mets and the New York Yankees, New York teams, right? So if he's coming out and he's saying that, oh, actually, the Toronto Blue Jays, the sentiment is that they are going to give the highest amount of money, I mean, I feel like there's got to be some weight to that. And I want to transition to the second part of what it was that he said there, talking about how the perception around Juan Soto in, like, releasing that to other teams, he doesn't need to do it because he's already so good. Because I know that there's going to be a lot of people in the comments and on Twitter, and rightfully so, suggesting that, well, this is an update kind of leaked out there by Scott Boras and that group of people to get the other teams concerned, to get somebody like a Steve Cohen concerned, and to get somebody like a Hal Steinbrenner concerned, or the Boston Red Sox concerned, because, oh, wait a second, Toronto Blue Jays are going to be the highest bidder? You're telling me that my offer of $625 million isn't going to cut it? Maybe I got to do more. And using this report as leverage. And because he comes out and he says here that Soto has no need to inflate that perception of him because, he is just really
we know who
good.
he is.
That kind of, it makes me feel a little bit more confident that potentially this is not just a leverage play. This isn't just something that was released by Soto and his team to get other teams more interested in giving more money. That actually the Toronto Blue Jays are very serious about shelling out $650 or even close to $700 million to get this guy on their ball club.
Yeah, I think people out there saying we're just being used as leverage, this is kind of going against everything that you believe right now. And now, do I believe that there could be both happening, that yes, he is serious about Toronto, but also I guess the byproduct of being, considering and listening to multiple teams is, the price will be driven up, because they inevitably they are going to compete with each other. So I think there's both happening, but I think I agree. I got to agree with Andy here and you, this isn't a leverage play. This is I'm serious. I just want to get the best offer on the table. Yes, and I think that involves getting other teams involved. And I want to go and be serious about all these certain teams right here, and the Blue Jays are one of them.
Well, and we got to hope so, right? Because, again, this could all just be, them playing their cards very, very well. And you never know where Andy Martino heard this from, right? Is it somebody from Scott Boras? And, Soto's just saying what he should be saying, which is, not trying to use everyone as leverage here, but also they're offering me a lot. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
of course,
we just need to hope that isn't the case. But ultimately, you can't ever be used as leverage if you always have the highest number. Because who are you leveraging? You know what I mean? If you have the highest number on the table every time, it doesn't matter because you are giving the most money. So he can try to use you as leverage as much as he wants. But if their number is lower than your number, you are always going to be in the driver's seat. So at the very least for me, to hear how serious the Toronto Blue Jays are and the management is about going out and giving an offer, and I do really hope that we get a little bit more clarification as to what that number might look like as we get closer to those winter meetings. I don't know if that's going to be revealed or not, but it makes me excited about what could potentially be, what could potentially happen this offseason. All of that being said, though, are we in the driver's seat right now? No, we are not. Because there are other squads out there that are looking pretty good for Juan Soto.
Yeah, we covered it on the last Blue Jays Today show last Friday. The whole Boston Red Sox crazy rumor drama stuff was coming out, and there was a lot going on, absolutely. And to a lot of those guys' credits, a lot of those people who came out with reports, and honestly, a lot of them are Dominican Republic reporters. A lot of them are coming from the camp of Juan Soto and the media over there. So there's a little bit of legitimacy when you think about that way. We have another guy here. I've actually never heard of this guy, but he is around. Marino Pepian. I don't really know how to pronounce his name. I hope I pronounced it right. He's come out and he said, I've consulted with many influential people linked to baseball in the DR, and most tell me that Juan Soto will be a Red Sox. This week is looking interesting. So, again, believe it, don't believe it. What you can take from this and everything going on with the Red Sox is that they are aggressive, they're serious, and even dating back to when they first had those initial meetings, the report came out that Juan Soto was seriously impressed by the Boston Red Sox. So I think that's a factor here that he legitimately is considering them over the Yankees, over the Mets right now.
Yes, and again, it's great to hear that the Toronto Blue Jays are willing to potentially be the highest bidder on the table. That's necessary, though, because I do think that just on a pound-for-pound basis, if you're comparing, the two organizations right now, I know I'm Canadian, so I would obviously pick the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah.
But on any neutral party, I can fully understand why they would want to go to Boston over Toronto, because that team, the foundation is set a little bit more, and you do have Fenway Park, and you do have a big market team there as well, and you do have Devers, and you got a lot of stuff going for them right now. So the Blue Jays, like we've continued to say, if they want to get Juan Soto here, need to be the highest bidder, and I hope that by this report coming out, it's clear that Ross Atkins knows that.
Yeah.
Red Sox, still very much there. Mets, still very much there. Before we transition and talk about the Yankees, because there was actually an update regarding them and Juan Soto. Can we get a little bit of a Mick update? I know all the people are hungry for the Mick updates. If you weren't following along in our last Blue Jays Today show, we broke down the drama with this Mick character right here. Is Beyond Average Mick on Twitter. He was kind of the first guy. Well, not really the first guy, but maybe the one that really let the floodgates open last Thursday, where he reported that actually Juan Soto had a deal in place with the Red Sox, that they were in agreement. Then Jeff Passan pushed back on him. Then Mick pushed back on him. It was this whole big thing, but Mick has continued.
Yeah, I mean, he's doubling, tripling, quadrupling, quintupling down on everything he's saying about this. And the thing is, going back to the original update that he said that Juan Soto was signed in the coming days. Well, it's been 5 days. So he hasn't signed yet. And again, I still believe his initial report is, again, a concoction of misinformation and broken telephones of, oh, well, there was an aggressive offer, and from my perspective, where it fell down to me, it now sounds like he is signing with this exact deal. So I think there's a lot of probably miscommunication. However, I have no idea. But again, this guy Mick just goes on to slam people like Gary Sheffield, guys, and Toronto Blue Jays, like that ain't cool. He's calling him a steroid user. Like, again, like this kind of guy, like I don't know him personally, but it just sounds like, dude, if you are wrong about this, then like it's gonna look terrible on you. Right now. Like this is not the way to go about journalism right now.
Sure. But, to Gary Sheffield's point, right, he was responding to what it was that Mick was doing and effectively saying, look, all the reporters that are coming out and saying that Juan Soto is a Red Sox are reporters that have nothing to lose right now. And Mick is firing his shots. So for me, this is actually turning into more like a little bit of a soap opera going on here, kind of just a comedy. I think it's a really fun watch here because regardless of what happens, following along with Mick and his story, that's going to be a lot of fun, too. If Soto does become a Red Sox, Mick's going to be a guy now. He's going to be a Boston Red Sox insider. But if he doesn't, I'm so excited.
Over.
I'm so excited to see how he navigates everything if he does not become a Boston Red Sox.
I think if I were to bet my life on it, it would go, Red Sox are very close. Oh, they're so close. And then next day, actually, he's going to be a Met. Like that, we've seen it with Aaron Judge. We've seen it last year with Shohei Ohtani. It does feel that way. So, hell, we even saw it with Freddie Freeman, 4 years ago, and it's like, oh, it looks like he's gonna be a Blue Jay, and then nope, he's actually a Dodger. So yeah, I again don't know the guy. But God, I really hope he's wrong.
Well, it would. Yeah, I hope he comes to the Toronto Blue Jays, right? That would be great. One place that he might not go to these days, though, is the New York Yankees. Yeah, again, they're still in the race. They're still going to be there because it's the Yankees. But a recent report came out suggesting that the New York Yankees are maxing out at $550 million for Juan Soto. That sounds like a crazy amount of money because it is a crazy amount of money. But when you're talking about somebody like a Juan Soto, it actually isn't that crazy, especially when you got the Red Sox and the Mets, and now apparently the Toronto Blue Jays, who are looking to be the highest bidder right here. $550 million from the New York Yankees. Yeah. That might not cut it.
No, it's not going to cut it. And like I mentioned before, like in that same report, like they're only offering $550, and there's also potentially three teams that are offering $600. And if I'm the Yankees right now, if you're seriously only willing to like get $550 for Juan Soto on the table, dude, move on. Like if that's the case, you even brought it up in the Blue Jays or the Bat for Baseball podcast. If that's all you're willing to do, then you're never going to get him. It was always going to be $600 million.
Unless you come up with something so ridiculous in the way that you structure your contract, then maybe you can do it. But it just feels so unlikely.
It would have to be, and he's brought this up before, Juan Soto. It's kind of been leaked that he wants some sort of opt-out options after year 3 and 4. I could see some ridiculous, maybe you package it into a 10-year deal. So if you're doing $550, the AAV for $550 over 10 years is quite a lot. That's $55 million, right? So like I can see in that realm that making sense, where then you offer him an opt-out after year 3 and opt-out after year 6 or something like that. Then maybe he might consider that.
Yeah. Now, we do have Robert Little coming in here saying Soto's sister's heading to Boston tomorrow to apartment hunt. Jays have no chance. So who said that? There was some person that said that.
I think it's a lie.
Listen, of course it's a lie. Like, who the fuck knows,
I forget who said that too, but again, I think they were trolling with the idea that, I think there was another, like last year there was some tweet of like, Ohtani was apartment hunting or something like that.
I think it was last year, if you remember. It was
Bellinger?
It was Bellinger's girlfriend was in Toronto.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, this is Cody Bellinger coming to Toronto.
Yeah.
And then it was later revealed that, one, I think that was an old photo show, and then 2, she was there for modeling or something.
Yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah,
Don't worry about the family members,
it.
guys. Focus on the main guy, Juan Soto.
And can you imagine like being Juan Soto's sister and being like, why are people following me to like Boston or wherever it is I'm going? You know, if it was true, but it can't be, man.
No,
like,
of course not.
Juan Soto's sister's not.
Yeah,
out there,
no weight to any of that whatsoever, guys. But we will be following along with the Juan Soto sweepstakes as they come. We're anticipating that we're probably going to be going live a couple times throughout this week, covering him, but also then covering the other news happening with MLB. There was a couple smaller signings. You had Matthew Boyd. You had Frankie Montas going over to the New York Mets. So we're starting to see that free agency window really creep open right here. And, we'll be following along with everything on Blue Jays Today.
We will be. Yeah, and on that note, guys, within the next 10 days, that's what John Morosi said right here on MLB Network. 10 days, and we should have an idea of where Juan Soto's going to land.
That puts us right at the end then of winter meetings. Yeah.
Literally right at the end of winter meetings, which ends on a Wednesday. So, guys, stay tuned. We're going to be going live. Absolutely. Yes. And if anything picks up for the Jays, like if you see, we're closing in on Max Fried, which, God, I really hope so. We do that in the next 10 days. Then we're going to be live for that as well.
Yes, especially next week, too. You know, maybe on the weekend we'll we'll figure it out, guys. It should be a really good time for content and for MLB news. Let's transition, though, and talk a little bit about a backup plan here for the Toronto Blue Jays. Even though they are willing to potentially be the highest bidder for Juan Soto, it's still ultimately unlikely that he is going to choose Toronto. And we need to not have happen what happened last year when they went all in for Shohei Ohtani and they got left with the scraps. We are hoping that's not going to be the case here. One name that I brought up on the last podcast, actually, is my number one target. This is my number one target after Juan Soto is Pete Alonso, and it's looking like some other MLB insiders and reporters and journalists are starting to talk about him a little bit more with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, you got John Heyman coming out here and mentioning on the Bleacher Report that New York Mets slugger Pete Alonso could be a potential plan B for the Toronto Blue Jays. And I wanted to bring up what you mentioned right there. Like that's what the Blue Jays needed, right? Like last year we had no plan B, and I guess you could make an argument that plan B was Cody Bellinger, but there was a ton of question marks going on with a Cody Bellinger, right? Is he going to be the Cody Bellinger of the Dodgers? Or is he going to be the Cody Bellinger of the Dodgers who, after his MVP year, sucked? What version are we going to get of him? Whereas Pete Alonso has been much more consistent. I think last year was his lowest home run year total ever. So, it was like 34.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, guys. I mean, Pete Alonso, are there holes in his game? Yes, there are. The strikeouts especially. However, you are talking about somebody who, since he has come up here, he's had a season where he hit 50 home runs. He's had 2 seasons where he hit 40 home runs, 2 seasons where he's hit 30, and then 1 season where he hit 16, but that was in the year of 2020 when nobody was hitting it. So if we rule out that year, which we should do, the lowest amount of home runs that he has ever hit is 34 in a season, with the ceiling being 53. He's going to be 30 years old this coming season, right? So still, you got to hope a lot of power right there. I mean, you're signing the guy with the floor being 30 bombs and the ceiling being 50. And I truly believe you are going to get within that range of outcomes for, 3-4 years to come.
Sure thing. I mean, he's going to be 30 getting up there, but I really don't think power is something that leaves that much when a first baseman is playing. You looked at George Springer, that power left at 34, 33. Because he's playing such a taxing position with the injuries out there in center field. So for me, Pete Alonso can be solid at first base and DH, because this Fanside article, they bring up a point of how signing Pete Alonso could be the end of Ross Atkins. And
I don't agree with that.
And I disagree with it completely, because their whole point is, now you have to move Vladdy over to third base, and Vladdy has bad defense, and also a person like Pete Alonso could age poorly. Well, I think anybody after their age 30 season could age poorly. So obviously everything could blow up in anybody's face, but if you're not getting a Juan Soto, that could happen to anybody.
Well, that's the thing, right? Let me put it this way, dude. Name me a sure thing after Juan Soto. Right, for the remainder of the I can't really come up with any single person.
No, besides position players, Corbin Burns.
Maybe,
and because he's been so healthy and consistent.
Similar to him, right? That's somebody. I think he's 31 right now at this point.
30, 31. Yeah.
So it's same argument can be made. Somebody like a Pete Alonso has been healthy pretty much the entirety of his career. And like I said, the floor was last year. Last year he had a 788 OPS. I mean, if that's the fucking floor.
Dude, he still hit 88 RBIs.
Yeah.
You know, like, that would solve so many problems in this 1 year period that we still have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That would solve the problems of protecting Vladimir Guerrero Jr., right? Like, there's literally nobody better than a guy who smacks 40 to 50 homers at his good ceiling.
And here's the other thing, too. You brought this up on our show earlier today, all right? A lot of Toronto Blue Jays are coming out here, and their whole argument as to, why Pete Alonso should not come to the Toronto Blue Jays is we already have Guerrero at first. Now, aside from the fact that there is a DH spot, and that Guerrero does have the eligibility to play third sometimes, and also, we'll just fucking figure it out. Aside from all of that, what if Guerrero doesn't re-sign with Toronto? What if Guerrero doesn't get extended? What if next season we are sucking, we realize that we're not going to get an extension done, and we decide to trade Guerrero? These are things that Blue Jays fans do not want to hear. I don't want to say them, but there is an actual reality where any of those things could happen, and if they did, well, you still have Pete Alonso now on whatever deal that you have him on.
Yeah, like, if that happened, we would still suck. Because, I mean, is Pete Alonso going to be the core of your team? I don't think so, because the guy in his whole career only bats like 246, right? Like, we're still missing that overall generational.
I'm not saying that we're going to be good. I'm not saying we're going to be good.
No, but it's a sad backup plan. Like, if we don't get Guerrero, like, okay, great, we have someone playing first, but like, we still need to go get somebody.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
I completely agree with you. I wouldn't. Pete Alonso is not going to fix the whole of Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but it's something.
But you're right. It's something.
It's better than the alternative of nothing at all, right? Look, we gotta think about this from a managerial standpoint as well, right? Like, they are probably thinking about such a situation. Well, okay, if we didn't ever manage to get Guerrero back, what's the backup plan here? Right now, we don't have one. Maybe it could be Alonso. Not saying that that's the route that they are going to go down. I think that if you get Alonso, you still try to lock Guerrero down as hard as you did before. But it's something. Yeah,
it's something, right? I mean, in the ideal world, you lock Vladdy down, you lock Alonso down, and then, you can have them splitting time at DH. I mean, granted, they've both been very, very healthy, but they are going to eventually get up there in age. And if you have them both on long-term contracts, how to preserve those guys' feet and legs is by giving them, like, switching off days, DH first base. I mean, back in the day when you had Edwin and Justin Smoke, like, DHing and, switching off days and on days, like, that's how you kept Edwin's legs alive. And then he started to fall off the table when, like, Edwin became a permanent DH or a permanent first baseman over there in Cleveland, and then he started dying, and Seattle started dying. So it's like, you want to be able to preserve some guys' legs, you got to have them first base and DH every now and then.
Sure, and then there's the whole other argument too, right? Well, you still got to convince Guerrero as to why he should re-sign with you. Yeah. And as much as he said that he wants to be with Toronto for the remainder of his career, I'm sure that there's also an element, in his brain too of, well, I do want to play some deep October baseball one time. I would like to make it to the World Series one time. I mean, you want to instill him with a little bit more confidence? Yeah. Go get another slugging guy who has been to the NLCS before and who can talk about that and who can help him at his position, right? Like, people who are saying that this is a negative or it won't happen all because they play the same position. I mean, there's just way too many positives for me in this thing to outweigh, like, some minor negative.
Yeah, like, the minor negative is that we're going to have a trouble finding a way to
Look at our second base bag. It hasn't stopped us before with getting a bunch of people there.
We literally moved Horwitz over to second base. He was a first baseman. Like, they'll find a way. They don't care. Defense, we went down that rabbit hole of being good defensively. We don't care about that anymore. It's now offense. Like, we will do anything to get there. Now, I did see someone in the chat talking about Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s free agency. This is Chris saying he's too close to free agency to sign at this point. Even if he wants to come back, the smart move would be to for him to use leverage in free agency. Jay's messed this up. And, I mean, when I do look at what's happening with Juan Soto, like, and I think about who would be the next big guy. We always talk about the big guys in free agencies. I mean, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is the next big guy next year. So if he's seeing what's going on with Juan Soto, he's like, well, damn, I could get a lot of money if I just wait a little. I could get $400 million if I just wait a little bit.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, of course, right? And I actually saw this quote from Ben Nicholson-Smith a little while ago. I was going to bring it up. I just remembered it while we were talking right here. It's from, where do they have it here? It's Sportsnet 590, The Fan, if you want to bring it up so people can see. But Ben Nicholson-Smith went on this podcast, and he was talking about it, and he said, I think it's going from, hey, are the Jays going to choose to extend Vladdy, to is Vladdy going to choose the Jays? That's something that I've talked about a little bit. I've spoken about that, where because we always claim that it's like, oh, it's the Toronto Blue Jays management's fault for not signing Guerrero, but this is a two-sided thing. This is a two-sided thing right now. Guerrero has got to choose the Jays just as much as the Blue Jays need to choose Guerrero, and having other things in here to incentivize him to stick around and to hold on to the Toronto Blue, like, this is not a bad thing, right? We got to factor in that it's not just the management's choice here. Guerrero is 50% of this decision as well.
Yeah, and the longer you keep waiting, the longer it's going to be scary. I mean, you had to, and we said this right off the top, like, I wanted a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. extension the minute the Blue Jays or the World Series ended. Like, the minute it ended. And they didn't do it. And now they're still waiting. And now that we keep waiting, it's more likely looking like we're not going to get a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. extension until he hits free agency next year. Like, that's legit. I like, what do you rather, if you had to bet your life on it, do you think that will happen? Like, he's not going to sign this offseason, or he will sign this offseason?
Yeah, it's such a, because, like, what changes, right? Like, I'm trying to think of, like, well, what would change to then, make him want to sign this offseason. I could see I guess this is how it would have to happen for me. The Toronto Blue Jays miss out on Juan Soto, which is likely to happen. Yeah. He signs for whatever money he signs for, and then they get a better idea, as does Guerrero, as to what they are projecting Vladdy to be worth after seeing the Soto signing, and it's close to one another. Like, their evaluation is close to what Guerrero is evaluating for himself.
Right.
And then they reconvene in January or February and go, okay, we're confident with this number, and he likes it. But, I mean, it feels like a fantasy scenario at this point, because, like, again, I've been saying this so many times. The closer that you get to free agent, or the closer that you get to the season and everything like that, well, now Guerrero just saw that Soto got paid $650 by the Red Sox. He saw that the Mets were in on it. He saw that the Yankees were in on it. He saw that the Blue Jays were in on it. So he could still come back to the Blue Jays, in his opinion, right? Think about it from his point of view. Blue Jays were in on it. They didn't get him. Well, if I hit free agency, they're probably still going to be in on me, which is super fair. He's getting closer to spring training. His body's feeling good. He's feeling fresh, He's thinking to himself, okay, I'm feeling confident. I can go in. I can have I'm feeling healthy. All those things. I mean, like, if I'm him at this point, I might just roll the dice and say fuck it and just hope I don't get injured and have a good season and then get paid $450 or $500.
Yeah. No, exactly. And going back to your thing of also a quick shout out to Daniela, 16-month member. Let's go. Saying, do you think Vladdy could sign during the 2025 season? I'm going to answer that in just a minute there, Daniela. But going back to your point of, like, they got to be kind of on the same page in terms of the contract extension. Like, ideally, I think we all can guess what Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to be worth, right? Like, at this point,
I'll be honest. I think that's actually not true at all.
What do you mean?
Because think about it. Last year, everyone was saying, like, at the beginning of last year, the number being floated around for Soto was close to 500.
Right.
And then it creeped up and up and up. So I don't think it's fair to say that we can guess what Guerrero's going to be worth.
I think we can, because, like, what would you say he's worth? What's the number being floated around now? 350? Right? That's the kind of number being floated around right now for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Now, if you assume he's going to do exactly what he does in this upcoming season, do the exact same kind of numbers, big numbers, I think it could be a 400, 450 guy with the market value.
Maybe.
Right? And if that's the price that Vladdy thinks he is, what he could get, but the Blue Jays see him at 350, like, that's going to be, like, really far off.
I know that. Yeah, and that's
why I have no confidence.
Ultimately, like, it feels unlikely that they're going to sign. But the thing is, so the issue with that Okay, so if you're saying that you think he's going to get paid $450 million, that's a number for me where if I'm the Toronto Blue Jays, I need to see you do it again.
Exactly.
Because I'll be honest, I don't think I'm willing to pay him $450 million comparatively to everything that everyone else is getting paid. That's something where it's like, all right, well, at that point, you got to take the risk and you got to go put up one more season. And then we'll talk in the offseason. If he is comfortable with getting paid $350 and not taking that risk, sacrificing maybe $75 million by signing prior to that season, then that's when I think they can come to an agreement.
Yeah, and that's why I think they should put it in the contract, in their contract extension with them this offseason. They should put where after 3 years, you have an opt-out option, just like Garrett Cole. You have an opt-out option, but we can cancel your opt-out if we up your AAV by like, I don't know, $5 to $10 million, like whatever it might be. Like that would incentivize him to play good. It would incentivize him a little bit more security there in that reason, right? Like, oh, you want to keep me, you're going to pay me more, and I want to get paid more anyways, right? And it will incentivize the Blue Jays being like, okay, well, you actually aren't worth that money, so we will let you go, and then let the market decide what you are now. So I think that's a strong case that the Blue Jays should be doing, because again, like, what is the team going to be like in 3 years? We don't know, right? Like, I think it's a legit offer. They should consider that.
Well, of course. I mean, they probably should. To answer the initial question, though, of do we think that Guerrero is going to be extended before next year? At this point, it feels unlikely. At this point, more times than not, honestly, at this point, guys, more times than not, I think he hits free agency.
Yeah,
and then you just better fucking cross your fingers and hope that like he likes Toronto enough and we are competitive enough to get that deal done. Now, we wouldn't be as worried about it if we signed Juan Soto because, okay, worst case scenario, we don't get Guerrero, but we still got Soto, right? So we wouldn't be as worried about it if that happened.
Yeah.
But it's looking increasingly likely that we might have a very dramatic offseason, not only this year, but then next year as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And now to answer Daniela's question, who's, again, a 16-month member, shout out to Daniela. Do you think he could sign during the 2025 season?
That feels unlikely to me.
It feels less likely than him signing.
So I'll put it this way. I think that it just feels unlikely to me because from a Blue Jays team standpoint, that would make a lot of sense, and they might want to do that. But if he's playing good, if I'm him, I'm not doing that.
No.
And then if he's playing bad, well, then if you're the Blue Jays, do you want to do that? You know what I mean?
Do you try and lowball him?
Yeah, it's like then, it just does. It feels like one of those things. Well, now we're in the thick of it, and then also you got to factor onto all of that. Well, how's the team doing and everything? Like, there's just so many different variables involved here that it feels unlikely that they'd be able to get that done. And I just think that especially if Guerrero is playing at the level that he was playing last year, there's just no way. Right?
Yeah.
There's just, like, for him, I'm focusing on this season. I'm focusing on hitting, 40 home runs or trying to get up to that place. And then we'll talk after that.
Agreed. Guys, let us know your thoughts in the chat. I see a lot of you in the live chat are letting your thoughts be known, but if you're rewatching this, let it be known in the YouTube chat. Let's give a quick shout out, everybody, to the sponsor of this Blue Jays Today show.
Whoa, time for a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video. Hit your picks and knock it out of the park with Betway. Scan the QR code down below to join the action. Only available in Ontario. Must be 19 years of older to participate. Please play responsibly. Now, everyone, back to the content.
Shout out to Betway every day for being absolutely phenomenal. Also, shout out to the 277 people in here. If you haven't already done so, please hit the like and smash the subscribe button. It's a very lofty goal. I kind of doubt that we're going to get there, but if we could hit 30,000 subscribers by the end of the year, that would be something spectacular. So if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel for your latest Toronto Blue Jays news and discussion. We got some Betway lines right here for the Monday Night Football. Let me tell you, I'm going to make some of my money back. I think so does Adam.
I made it back yesterday.
Kind of. Slow and steady wins the race right here. What do you have for this one?
This one is a pretty obvious one. Yeah, sure, the Browns had a big upset of the Steelers, but that was also a really weird divisional game in the snow. This is not that. Maybe it is snowing. Who knows? It is in Denver, Colorado. Broncos hosting the Browns. They are the heavy favorites. it feels like the Broncos are going to go to town, and they should go to town, even though Jameis Winston's pretty exciting. I feel like Bo Nix has got that momentum with him. The team is looking pretty studly. The lines are reflecting that too. So, you got to choose whether you want to go with the Broncos side or maybe take an alternate spread with the Browns. So I feel like I do feel strong, though, the Broncos are going to take this one away. I would just go simple Broncos money line.
I get that. Now, actually, I was looking at Betway, and I really like this. They have an alternate thing where you can click on Jameis Winston and Bo Nix to get 200 passing yards, both of them, which they have both been doing. That will double your money. I actually like that a lot more than like picking a team in this one because, yeah, the Browns aren't great, but I could see a reality where Jameis Winston decides to pop off and sling that thing around.
Right.
Hop on to Betway, guys. Lots of different options, and when baseball season rolls around, we'll be giving you guys some stuff to bet on as well. Now, I saw some people in the chat asking about the questions. We are going to answer said questions, folks. Let's get to the first fan question that we had today. We asked you guys to submit these in our mailbag. Link is in the description. Thank you so much to everybody that has submitted your questions so far. We got one coming in from Zion saying, with the Blue Jays most likely not getting Soto, who do you think they should target next, and what part of the team should be improved the most? Well, that's kind of two different questions because, like I have said time and time again, I like Pete Alonso, but there's another part of the team that needs to be improved.
Yeah, it's the bullpen, guys. I mean, I think I actually said this in our Bad for Baseball podcast, is they got to go and just solve that immediately. I mean, like, what are we waiting around for? Like, there's so much low-hanging fruit out there on the free agency market. It's not even like there's a clear domino effect that needs to happen in place for these relievers. Like, you can go get a legit guy for $5, $6, $7 million out there and go add him to your bullpen and like, it's not like that's going to be your only move. Like, you're going to have to make a little bit more. Maybe they're looking at the trade market too. Like, maybe they're waiting till the winter meetings. Maybe they see if they can move one of their younger middle infielders around to another team for another younger type of bullpen arm. And I get that if they want to wait around till that and then go and see what they can get in free agency. But I think if they're not likely going to get Soto, who should they target next? I'm assuming you don't mean a bullpen guy, but if you're talking about the next caliber, I do like Pete Alonso. Again, I really do think adding a strong corner outfielder is needed, like an Anthony Santander, and if they could somehow manage to get Teoscar Hernandez, I don't think that's going to happen, but if they can get a Santander back, that helps out the defense or the offense in that outfield because you got George and Varsho locking it down as defensive guys, but not so much offensive guys. So for me, that's where I'd go look next.
Yeah, I get that. I think for me, it's definitely Pete Alonso. I also really like a Max Fried. I think, like I said in previous shows, the talent for me, it's go get the most talented player. Who's the guy that you trust the most? I trust Pete Alonso a lot. I also trust Max Fried a lot. I start to linger with my trust when it comes to an Alex Bregman, a little bit with a Santander. I still trust Teo, but I think that eventually the fall off is going to, because he is 33 now, I believe.
Think so, yeah.
So it's going to happen sooner rather than later. I'd still be very happy if he's on the team, but I would probably like an additional bat as well if you were to go that route. But yeah, give me one of the big time starters or a Pete Alonso.
And shout out to Betway again, guys. You can bet on all the Blue Jays next season. We got another question in here. I'm going to pull it up. Also, I did see someone asking about like how often we do these kind of things. We do about 3 to 5 every time. We do kind of 3. We're just right now it's like kind of slow, and if you send in more, the more questions you guys send in, the more we're gonna answer. Like, it just comes down to that, right? And feel free to ask whatever you want, whether it be the Blue Jays upcoming season, whether it be free agencies, whether it be completely something random and off topic. You guys let us know.
Yeah, there you have it, guys. We got another question in here coming from Luke saying, do you think the Jays will keep Alek Manoah around? Well, yes, I do, because ultimately I don't think that there is any other squad that would really be super interested in him right now. And I think that the Toronto Blue Jays, I think you saw it last year, they value Manoah more than other organizations would value him. And I'm gonna credit the dugout, actually. How many times were we watching a Toronto Blue Jays game last year and they flashed over to the dugout and Alek Manoah was standing in there cheering on the squad when he hasn't been up with the team in months? And this isn't the first time that we've seen this either, right? Alek Manoah just kind of hangs around. And they're not going to keep a guy hanging around if they don't have any plans for him in the future or they don't like him.
Right.
So clearly, everybody in that team, everybody in that organization likes Manoah, and there is at least some pathway for him in the future, or else there's no way that they'd be inviting him along with them on the bus and on the it's just it would never ever happen, right? So yes, I do think that they'll be keeping him around.
Yeah.
The leash will eventually run out though if he keeps getting injured.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And here's another point of why they like them. I mean, we just went through this pre-arb deadline, and this is Alek Manoah's first year on his first arbitration. Can you believe it, right? Like,
wow.
I know, right? It's kind of wild how time flies. But he was supposed to make $2.3 million, and they could have just non-tendered him, got rid of him. But they didn't. And they're willing to literally pay this guy maybe $2 million next season. That's how much it tells you that they like him.
Yeah, that is, and again, that's not a crazy contract, all things considered in the MLB. But when you're talking about somebody like Manoah, who hasn't really been healthy in 2 years kind of now, and hasn't played good baseball in 2 years now, that starts to look like a significant chunk of money. They do think that there's a future with him still. How much longer they're going to believe that honestly comes down to Alek Manoah, his work ethic, how he performs, and ultimately his health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, right? So I think, again, we got to wait and see. I think we talked about this before in the last podcast, that the kind of outlook or the hope is that Alek Manoah kind of comes back middle of next year, comes back healthy, kind of acts like that Hyun-Jin Ryu from 2 years ago where, wow, the rotation really needed somebody to come in and help out. And then, boom, all of a sudden you have this like fifth starter guy that's kind of dealing right now. And if he can come and do that, then that will be $2.3 million well spent.
Exactly, yeah. Now, a final question here coming in from Adam. Adam, it's supposed to be for the viewers, man.
Yeah.
Why are you asking questions? Who from the current roster is most likely to get moved? Ernie, Horwitz, Barger, Schneider, Lucas, or other? That's a great question. That's a tough question because there's a lot of different routes that you can go down with this one. I don't know. You go first.
I'll knock off a couple that I don't think are most unlikely, so then I'll kind of narrow it down. I don't think Schneider's going to get moved. If he's going to get moved, it's going to be like a, you get optioned kind of move, but not get, I'm assuming you're being traded. He's not going to get traded because his value is extremely low after last season's debacle. Ernie's interesting. I think it's up there, but I don't know how much you're going to get back in return. I think teams would much rather spend more capital on someone like a Barger or a Horwitz, right? And Lucas, I think it's just one of those guys where he hasn't played that much in the MLB. He's like 30 years old now, 31 I think he's even turning, and he's like no MLB experience. So
yeah, that's the thing. Right?
No one's going to spend on a 30, 31-year-old guy who's played AAA most of his career. Great, good AAA numbers, but not that much. So with that being said, I think out of all these guys, Barger is going to get moved. Now, you did say other, but I'll just keep it simple and go to these guys. Barger, probably most likely, because Horwitz, I think they like a little bit too much, where Barger's still got that prospect pedigree that you could probably sell.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think that Barger could get moved for sure. I think that there's some team out there that would be interested in an Ernie Clement.
Yeah.
Kind of similarly to a
Espinal.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
That was the name I was looking for, right? Like, yeah, he doesn't have a super great pedigree to him, but guy played good baseball. And there's going to be, a Pittsburgh Pirates type of team out there where it's like, well, we need guys that can just slot in and play decent baseball for us. And from a Toronto Blue Jays standpoint, especially if they were to go out and they were to get an Alex Bregman or trade for a third baseman or Elvis Martinez, he's coming up and he's looking, well, we need space.
Yeah.
And, Ernie Clement, as much as we liked what he did, what's the ceiling with him? Have we already seen it? Can he get better, right? I don't know. So I do think Ernie Clement is definitely one of them. I would also say as well, and I guess this is not really answering the question, but kind of answering the question. I think Chris Bassett, but not this offseason. I think that there is a high likelihood that Chris Bassett gets traded at the trade deadline this coming year.
Yeah.
That's the pessimist in me or the cynic in me, assuming that the Toronto Blue Jays will not be in a playoff race. Because if we're not and we are sellers, one of the biggest pieces that you'll have to sell, assuming that he's playing at least serviceable baseball, is going to be Chris Bassitt on his final year. And if we don't make playoffs, I don't think there's any way that Chris Bassitt finishes next season as a Toronto Blue Jay.
Yeah, there's definitely that reality. Now, I could even see him. I was trying to concoct a reality in my brain where, like, we are competitive and we still trade Chris Bassitt. Like, we'd have to have so much going right in our pitching staff that, we do see the end of Chris Bassitt's contract if he's pitching mediocre, and then you do have Alec Manoah coming up. Bowden's playing amazing, Yariel's playing amazing, and Jake Bloss is coming up through the ranks.
And also, too, factor in, if that's the case, I could see that happening if they went out and got a Max Fried.
And they went out and got a Max Fried,
because then it's like,
exactly.
Okay, well, we got enough depth here, but maybe the bullpen's not great, or the lineup needs help, and we need a little boost there. Let's do a little swap, and you get that guy, and we'll get this outfielder.
Exactly,
right?
So I could see that being a reality too. But the first things first is a lot has to go right.
Yes,
for
I
Blue
feel
Jays.
like exactly. I mean, ultimately, like more times than not, if you're trading Bassitt, it's probably because
you're
ain't
losing.
Good. Yeah,
we're
not good.
And I hope to God that doesn't happen, man. I'm slowly coming back to baseball land a little bit. Like, it's always around this December time, around the New Year's time, when I'm starting to see the spring training cleaning up and we haven't seen it too much yet, but you'll start to see teams getting formed and lines coming out there of like win totals, projections, and I'm starting to get the little bit of hope back that I'm excited for a new baseball season.
I don't know why you're doing that. We hahaven't signed anyone yet, and
because I miss
see
baseball.
Some people get signed.
I miss baseball. I just miss watching baseball.
I miss
I'm getting
baseball
that point
too, but
even though it was terrible last year.
Missing baseball and having hope for this team for me are two separate
things.
things.
Like when I miss, it's like every football season. Like, even though the Cardinals were 4-13 last year, I was hopeful that things were going to turn around, and maybe they did turn, maybe they didn't. But I do miss baseball, and I'm hopeful that something better will come of this.
Of course. Let's go out and sign some guys first, though, is where
yeah.
I'm at. You guys let us know in the comments down below. What do you think about everything that we talked about today? Blue Jays looking to be the highest bidder for Juan Soto, but still Red Sox are there. Mets are going to be there. We're going to be following along with that storyline as it develops. Probably be going live throughout this week, as well as maybe on the weekend and next week too. It should be a lot of content in a short period of time because a lot of people are going to be signing before those winter meetings.
Yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. $3 a month, become a Patreon member. Shout out, thank you to all of our current Patreon members and to our YouTube members as well. You guys are absolutely awesome.
Thank you so much for watching, and as always,
go Jays, go!